It is with great pleasure, on behalf of the Notre Dame Alumni Association, to welcome and honor and present to you the 2016 Harvey G. Foster Award winner, Mr. Joseph Échelle.
Thank you, Monica, for the introduction. I really am honored. I want to accept the 26 Foster G. Harvey Award on behalf of the soccer community that is presented to me by the Notre Dame Alumni Association. I want to accept it for the 1961 group of pioneers who were on the team, to all of the ones who are now on the 2016 team playing varsity soccer, and they so fiercely compete around the campus, around the world, especially against U.S. colleges. Both the men and the women are active in promoting soccer for the university. They've done an outstanding job. I was able to meet with Coach Bobby Clark, and it's amazing the development of the program and the resources that they have from the university. I'm also honored to accept this award in connection with the Kavanaugh Award that is being presented to Ambassador McNamara. I am honored to be with you, such a distinguished diplomat. In thinking about how this award came about, I am reminded of my roommate, Jim Fitzgibbon, who's here, and his wife, who came up from Louisville. We were visiting with his granddaughter, Grace, and she was telling us how she came. She said, my parents prayed and prayed and prayed until I came from heaven. And I thought that was a terrific story, and I said, so here I am. I think when I look back and I learned that I was being awarded this Harvey Foster Award, when our executive director, Dolly, called and said, I have good news for you. And I thought that award then fell from heaven, because I didn't expect that. In preparation, I thought the best way to present my background is, some sports writers have said that there could be not a story like the famous Rudy movie or a Hollywood script, but there could be a trilogy written about your background. So they said volume 1 should be the World War II in a refugee camp and where we started to play soccer. The volume 2 would be the Americanization process, which took place especially here at Notre Dame. And the third one would be, the third volume, would be introducing professional soccer here in the United States. In regards to World War II, as Monica mentioned, my family was in ethnic community in Yugoslavia when the Russian invasion came. My mother was very brave. She took us across the Danube, went to Austria, eventually had to cross again the Danube to go into the American zone, and we landed up in a displaced person camp. It was a very hard time for my parents. We had only one room. There was my parents, my sisters, Anna and Lottie, who are here, my grandmother. There was no water, no heat. There was hardly any food. As Monica mentioned in my biography, I caught polio, scarlet, but I was able to go to a hospital to one of the most beautiful cities, Salzburg, but we lived outside of that. But the other part is the food, I remember, was mainly we could go to the farms and as youngsters to go look for potatoes that weren't harvested by the farmers. And since I'm a modern language major here at the university, I had studied Russian, liked the language. And I remember a potato story that I like to share with you. When, during the Cold War, Ambassador McNamara, when Khrushchev was in power, he was interviewing a collective farmer, a kolkhoz, and he was asking, said, comrade, how's the potato crop? And the farmer said, ooh, it's all the way up to God. And the Khrushchev says, well, there is no God. And the farmer said, there's no potatoes either. that's how it was for us when we went to the fields. There were no potatoes because wartime was very tough. The farmers there, they spoke the same language as we did. They had to get whatever food they could get. But the memories of in the camp playing soccer we had no shoes, we were barefooted, we did our own handcraft of the ball. The only ball I really saw besides the rag ball was a medicine ball, and when you kicked those, you broke your toes if you used the toe to kick with. We played for hours, and it was the joy we had. And when I think how many children these days, I think it's like 50 million children are homeless, are really refugees around the world. I think the one thing that they really look for is education, which we had a good education there, and to play soccer. My family was really tagged as we were, I'm trying to think, we were refugees, we were expellees, we were stateless, we were immigrants, but yet now we're all Americans. But then we immigrated to America. My family landed in Mansfield, Ohio, and we had a sponsor there, and I must say, my parents, my grandson, they worked very hard. They were employed at Tappan, and they were able to send us to, all my two sisters, to private Catholic universities. I came to Notre Dame, and my freshman year, Fitz was my roommate, and we stayed for all the 4 years. The Americanization that I went through with student government and service organizations was tremendous, and I became a U.S. citizen, especially to take ROTC. As it proceeded, during the year, was involved in saying that we need to do something special here for Notre Dame and for America, and we organized a soccer team. The ambassador for the athletic department was Moose Krause. He was very receptive. We'd sit down with him and would sort of lay out the plan, and the one thing he would say, and he was very diplomatic about it, he would say, don't play Michigan State, don't play Michigan until you're ready to play them. We immediately had bombarded by like 200 schools that wanted to play against us. As students, we had to set aside, and I'm sure our studies suffered, to be polite and answer letters to them to say, yeah, we cannot play you, but we'll get going. So the first season was a very successful one, except for the first game. We learned very early that you win your team and your championship with reserves. The goalkeeper got hurt, and the goals just poured in. But afterwards, and I didn't realize, not having been with any professional teams, the coach of the other team said, Joe, where are the towels? And I didn't realize you're supposed to meet them and give them towels to shower with. So because they beat us, they had to go just wet. But the part I wanted to mention too is, as an immigrant family, my father wanted to show us America, so we went to Washington. We went up to Andrews Air Force Base, and I'm sure as our Ambassador Gregan, Ambassador McNair would know, my dad drove into a certain driveway, and suddenly the Air Force guard came, and he ordered us out of the car. And my dad didn't speak much English, but he would have understood certain things. But the guy said, spread eagle. Well, to a German to say spread eagle, that means nothing to him. He pulled out his gun, and it was a very hectic moment. The other thing I wanted to share with my parents was, since we knew that there would not be much soccer here in America, my dad took us from Mansfield to Cleveland to a game. My mother was very particular, very Germanic. We had to change clothes along the way, and I think my sisters will remember that. We went to a game where the Ohio All-Stars played a German team, Borussia Dortmund. They were beaten like 10-1. But in those years, you had only one ball, and that's when I learned the bouncing ball goes along my career. So there is a bouncing ball going out of the stands into the field, down the street, and you could only play with one ball that was designed. Like nowadays, you throw it in. There were kids on the side that took the ball and ran away. People came out of the stands chasing them. So, so I have experienced a lot with the ups and downs of soccer. I know the group that we had in the first year, we had only 2 graduates. So after my graduation in '62, Bob Du Bois took over, and we had a constitution, we had bylaws, we had a business manager, and then the following year, John Pelker took. But it took, let's see, it took 15 years, from '61 to '76, for Notre Dame to take on a varsity sport. And now, since '76 to 2016, that's 40 years, the varsity sport has been in existence. So soccer, it took 55 years to get to where it is today, but it's on the top as far as colleges are concerned. Further Americanization, I did have, in the Army, I played football. They showed me how, I was an officer, but they said, you play football, you can kick, you can run. We played tough military bases like Camp Lejeune and Quantico Marines, and at one of the games, a guy came up to me, I took off my helmet, and he says, Joe, what are you doing in a football uniform? And it was Mike Giacinto who played on the Notre Dame football team. But I was eventually, I went through Houston and I called, and this is probably the American way, I just called the Houston Oilers and I said, are you interested in a kicker? And the guy who answered, and this is my Notre Dame connection, was Lou Rimkus. He was a All-American tackle here. He was coached in the AFL, American Football League, and the National Football League. He said, come on out next day. So I was just traveling through there, had to find out and to get the money to buy shoes. I bought shoes, went to the field, and I was very lucky. From 45 yards in, left and right, I made every kick. And as a result, they rushed me, even without getting the shower, down to the office and assigned a contract. When I told my dad, who did follow football in Notre Dame, he said, George Blanda, against him? No way. Eventually, he was a man that played football. He had fired coaches, and I think our older alumni will remember him. He is in the Hall of Fame for football. Then I went to work for General Tire, and while I was there, I was contacted by the Browns. They wanted me to come and show them at the office how to kick that football, the oblong football. So the bouncing ball changed from a round one, a rag, to a football type. And I did probably the most un-American thing. I did prepare, but not very thoroughly. And I didn't want to lose the job there, so I didn't know what to do. So I called in sick. And I lied, I'm going to hell. And I said, I'm going to, just went to the training. It rained very hard. And the guy that I had to beat out, and of course couldn't, because he was terrific, was Lou Groza. So those two, but what helped the football community, starting with the Notre Dame stars like Rimkus, the athletic department, Moose Krause, and also Dominic Napolitano, recommended me for jobs. I went to work for the Astrodome in soccer, baseball, radio, television. Eventually, I was hired by Lamar Hunt when they had still a lot of money as a general manager. Went to Denver to turn franchises around. So I go from being Americanized with football, baseball, to the pro soccer league. And we traveled internationally. We signed players from South Africa, from Yugoslavia, went to Russia. But the whole thing was, and I think I can again, with the diplomatic theme that you said, if you want to know America, follow football and baseball. If you want to know the world, it's soccer. So this brings me to my time here, and I'm really, as far as Notre Dame soccer is concerned, I think the global game has taken hold. The athletic department with the athletic director bent backwards to interview the pioneers for starting soccer on Wednesday night, went to the training to watch the players. They introduced themselves. They're really gentlemen. Met for lunch, the athletic department, and the coach, Bobby Clark, who's done a tremendous job here. this has been a terrific weekend. My wife and I really enjoyed it, and my daughter, son-in-law, and the little one who's going to be a future Notre Dame kicker is here with us. My sisters were able to come, so I really think you, the alumni, the board, the staff, the athletic department, the film crew, I can only say you are my heroes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.